Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel. I'm your host, Jimmy Smith. So we are going to be looking at this presentation on Chianti. So this is understanding Chianti for the WSET Level 3 certificate. So I am delighted to have you on board. If you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe on the YouTube channel. And if you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, please drop a comment in the comments section just below this video on YouTube, or get in touch via social media that you see at the bottom of every slide, or you can get in touch via the Wine with Jimmy website on the contact us part of that page. On the Wine with Jimmy website, we have our e-learning portal, which has a huge, bigger wealth of videos like this to help you understand your WSET Level 3, as well as things like flashcards, revision sessions, multiple choice questions, short written answer questions. It's a real wonderful place for you to go and study, revise, understand, and then help you conquer your WSET Level 3 certificate. Okay, so let's begin with the beautiful Chianti. So we are going to whisk ourselves away to Toscana or Tuscany, which is situated in central western part of Italy. And in this picture, you'll see quite a classic picture of the Chianti lands, which lie just to the west of the Apennines, situated around beautiful cities, or kind of in the middle, really, of beautiful cities of Pisa, Firenze or Florence, and Siena. And it typically looked like this, those gorgeous typical buildings. Then you have the cypress trees that line, you see at the bottom of this picture specifically. So we see them just here. Olive plantations. I don't think we've got any in this picture. There's a few olive trees to the bottom left, actually. And then, of course, lots of vineyards and forests. And that's a typical way. It's very undulating landscape. It's very hilly. And that's because it comes down from the mountainous Apennines as it then goes down towards the Maremma coast. So it's that middle area of hills, which is rather wonderful. So to give you an idea of where it is, so there we are. So there is the wonderful nation of Italy, including Sardinia and Sicily. But we are pointing, as the arrow suggests, just here to that area that we're focusing on, which is Tuscany or Toscana. Tuscany is the English, Toscana the Italian. It's completely fine to write either for the WSET Level 3. And it is this area which is south of Emilia-Romagna, south of Liguria, next to Marche. Umbria is just to its east, and then Rome's region, which is Lazio or Latium, is just to the south. And then we have the Mediterranean just here, which is really part of where the Ligurian Sea meets the Tyrrhenian Sea, which is this Mediterranean zone to its westerly side. So that's its location in Italy. We'll look at a few closer things in a second in terms of the cities and so on. And this, by the way, will be a two-part series. This first part is all the information. The second part will be a Google Earth 3D video and also a short written answer question. So let's just have a quick look then at something we need to know that's quite important about Tuscany before we go into the specific DOCGs of the area for Chianti. And the key thing we really need to know here is the principal grape variety, which accounts for coming up to 2/3 of plantations of Toscana, which is, of course, the very famous Sangiovese. Now, some of you who have been on the YouTube channel before or on the e-learning portal will know that I've got a load of grape variety presentations as well. And there is one which is an advanced version of Sangiovese that you can look at, which gives you a huge amount of information about its origins or likely origins, other grape varieties related to it, its history, and so on and so on. Now, a lot of that you will not need to know for your Level 3 certificate, but if you are interested in more, there's plenty more to find out about on the Sangiovese advanced video. So what do we need to know about it for our Level 3 certificate? Well, as I mentioned, it's the most dominant and prevalent grape variety in Toscana. Sangiovese is the key red grape variety of Italy, but Tuscany, it's kind of the spiritual home of the grape variety. It's not really its original. It's likely to come from the south of Italy. And that's due to a lot of genetic coding down there, a lot of markers of other grape varieties that are situated down there. But it really today has found its home here in Tuscany because of some of the greatest representations of this grape variety. It ripens, the variety, very late. So it therefore needs a good, decent, warm growing season to ripen it as much as possible. So therefore, in an area which is Mediterranean influenced, like Toscana, you will find that it has that capability, and that's why it's here. So late ripening. It's also very tolerant of drought. So it's quite decent when you get down towards the south of Italy as well as parts of Tuscany. It also obtains very high, or holds on to, retains very high levels of acidity. It also ripens quite very intense tannins as well. So they can be quite powerful, the tannic structure. So high tannin, high acidity, and then, of course, its lovely amount of character as well, which is that you'll find it getting often things like cherries, often quite sour due to the acidity, things like other red berries, red currant, plum is quite common as well, as you'll see in this picture. And it does age exceptionally well when it gains kind of mushroomy characteristics, maybe meaty notes as well. In certain areas, certainly the better areas, Sangiovese will also have a specific herbaceous character, a herbal note, which is often quite delightful and adding more complexity to it. Not green, but herbal. Now, its maturation regimes, which we'll go through for most of the DOCGs, there will be oak often used for Sangiovese due to its quite abrasive, harsh tannins. So you'll find that oak is used to soften that through the process of oxidation. Both the small barrels, barriques, and large barrels, often of Slavonian origin, are called botti, and they are classically used, traditionally used as well. Okay, now the next thing is the map of the area. So Chianti we're talking about now. So Chianti is a rather wide area which really covers the foothills of the Apennines. And the Apennines are this area it kind of comes all the way sort of down here. And there's lots more here, here, and so on. So as you can see, all the colourful parts of that is the foothills from the Apennine mountain range. So that is the hilly, the undulation that we saw on picture 1, for instance. There's lots of lovely hills in this area and some good altitude as well. And the cities, so let me just point these out for you. You will see that we have Pisa, which is a little bit too towards the coast on this map, Florence, which is just here, or Firenze, and then Siena. And most of Chianti's regions lie somewhere between these 3 cities. Pisa, famous for the Leaning Tower. Places like Florence, of course, very famous, certainly for the Medici family, banking families, lots of art, Michelangelo. And Siena, down to the south, more famous for Leonardo. And you have those 3 main cities. They're the main ones. Yes. So that's your 3 cities of the area. Sangiovese is the dominant grape variety, but reds will be blended here. So you will find blends. For example, Chianti, standard Chianti, can have up to 30% of the grape varieties blended in, which will both be French and Italian in origin. Local Italian varieties, and then some other French varieties like Merlot, for instance, and Cabernet Sauvignon. So other grape varieties can be blended into these. Okay, Chianti is split into numerous types of styles. There is generic Chianti and its subzones, which we'll go through first, and then Chianti Classico and its specific higher quality Chianti Classicos. So we'll look at those as well. So they're the two main groups, really. Before I do go into that, I just want to give you something here. Now, I want to really stress on this, that this will not be included in your examination. But I think I've spent a few minutes on this, just talking about the history of the Gallo Nero, our black rooster. And that's because it's quite famous for Chianti Classico specifically. So you'll see here an emblem, which is really the symbol of Chianti Classico with the black rooster. So why do we have this? Well, we have to go back to history a little bit. And with the history of the area, famously, you had the two city-states of Firenze or Florence fighting against the southerners, Siena. Florence and Siena were habitually at war, and they eventually the Sienese lost to the Florentines, and that's with the power and the might of the Medici family behind them. But in terms of the land between Florence and Siena, it is Chianti Classico, and this land was fiercely fought over by the Florentines and the Sienese. So what happened? Well, they decided to come up with a system between these warring city-states of Firenze and Siena, and they decided to come up with a system. The Florentines would send a knight south, so a knight in armor. They would send him south, and the Sienese will send a knight north. Where those two would meet would form the boundary between the two city-states. Now, the way that the knights would leave the cities, that they would leave on the crow of the rooster in the morning. So when you hear that at the crack of dawn, the knights would leave. Now, the knight of Siena left to a white rooster, which crowed at the crack of dawn like normal. However, the very crafty Florentines, and no doubt you probably watched Medici on Netflix or something like that, they were very, very skilled and very crafty. They had a black rooster which they had starved for a number of days and put it in solitary confinement. Then on the chosen morning, which was when the night was being set off, the rooster actually crowed at a very early, 3 or 4 hours before the Siena knight's rooster crowed. So therefore, the knight of Florence left earlier and, of course, conquered pretty much all of that land south. And the Siena knight never got into those lands due to this little bit of crafty work. So because of this little bit of story, maybe mythology, Chianti Classico has adopted the black rooster as its symbol, which you will find on the bottles and bottle capsules. It's quite classic. Now, just to restate that this will not be included in your examination. It's a nice little anecdotal story, which hopefully gives you a little bit of romance to help you remember the facts around this area, which are now coming. And we're going to learn about the hierarchy of the Chianti DOCGs. So these are the key things you'll need to know about Chianti. So you'll see here, there is a triangle on this presentation, which has the lighter green area, which is down this bottom area, is generic Chianti. That's what it says here, Chianti DOCG, which includes Chianti DOCG and its subzones. The darker greens above that is Chianti Classico, and that includes Chianti Classico, Chianti Classico Reserva, and then Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. So they are the two groups that we're going to look at. First of all, we are going to look at, of course, Chianti, generic Chianti. So let's have a look at this. So let's get rid of everything else. We're going to be looking at the bottom, lowest quality of the DOCG. So the first thing to note here, all Chianti is of the highest level classification, DOCG, garantita, all of it. Even this bottom rung of the ladder, generic Chianti DOCG, as you'll see here. So where do we find Chianti DOCG? Here you'll see on the map that we used earlier, it really is the kind of smattering of yellow on this map, which can be as far north as Pistoia. It actually goes very close to Lucca and Pisa. It actually goes really in towards Pisa. Pisa should be more across on this map. It goes all the way up towards Rufina, all the way down here in the eastern portion, down towards Vino Nobile, down towards Brunello. It really is spread out. It's a huge expansive area, and really this is the more generic side of Chianti. So producers here make large volumes of just Chianti DOCG. They'll source their grapes from the greater region, and this will often have other grapes blended in, up to 30% of other grapes, often something like the easy to cultivate Merlot in this area, but other grape varieties as well. You could get Chianti Riserva DOCG, and that will have normally extra aging stipulation, but it's all generic Chianti. Okay, so that's the generic one. That's stuff you can pick up in a supermarket here in the United Kingdom for £5. And doesn't tend to be the most inspiring of wines. Then we have the Chianti subzones, which are still within the Chianti generic DOCG. There are 7 of these subzones, of which only 2 are mentioned in your text for the level 3. Those 2 are Rufina and then the hills of Senesi, Colli Senesi. Okay, Rufina and Colli Senesi. They are the 2 that they wish you to know. So these are higher quality. Not all the subzones are higher quality, but the 2 that have been identified here are, they're higher, and there'll be grapes from a particular part of the Chianti zone. So that is Rufina, for instance, and Colli Senesi, the hills of Senesi. And the name will also appear on the label. You must understand, though, that Chianti Classico is not a part of these 7 subzones. It is a separate higher level quality DOCG. So let's have a look at where these are. So here you'll see that Chianti Rufina DOCG is this pinkish area right in the northeast of Tuscany. It's actually in a gap in the Apennines, which is quite high in altitude, cooler, windier, and this actually means that the grapes of Chianti Rufina are often more fresher, more acidity, and they have more tannic structure. They are ripened quite late here. These are some of the most elegant, fragrant, but structured styles of Chianti. It's a really good DOCG. And then the second one they wish you to have understanding of is Chianti Colli Senesi. And this is a DOCG which encompasses the area around the beautiful city of San Gimignano. And San Gimignano is famous for whites. The DOCG is a white there. But the reds made from this area is Colli Senesi. These are lovely wines that are fragrant again, but more softer and more fruitier than Rufina, but certainly much better quality than generic Chianti. You don't need to know the next thing I'm going to say, but there are other DOCG subzones, like things like Chianti Colli Pisane, which is this one here. There is also Chianti Colli Fiorentini, which is around Florence, but don't worry about those for your level 3. So that's generic Chianti complete with generic Chianti DOCG and the subzones. Above that, we have Chianti Classico, and its 2 separate higher level qualities. So let's have a look at our first one, which is the Chianti Classico DOCG. So this is our own DOCG, so it has its own DOCG. The vineyards are spread out between Florence and Siena at higher altitudes than most other Chianti, generic Chianti. This slows the ripening of Sangiovese, resulting in wines that generally have higher acidities and more tannic structure and an edge of herbal notes to them. The wines are all round more complex than most other Chianti. And this is why it's the famous, real famous zone. It's the famous area. The word Classico across Italy means kind of a historical heartland of the region. So if you had an Orvieto Classico or a Soave Classico, then often of higher quality than the generic style. Okay, so that is Chianti Classico. Where is it? There you are. So you have the reddish area, as I mentioned, situated between Florence or Firenze and Siena. So it's this middle area around lovely villages like Greve, Radda, Castellina, Jole as well, some lovely areas. So this land-wise is about 10,000 hectares, but only about 7,000 of it is to vine. The rest is citrus trees, olive plantations, and forests. But it's very hilly, as we mentioned, and this is where the famous, most structured examples will come from. Okay, so a little bit about aging lengths of Chianti Classico. So Chianti Classico has a minimum stipulation of aging. So this is after production of the wine, but then maturation. 12 months minimum total aging. And this can be, when oak is used here, this can either be in botti, which is very large Slavonian oak, as you can see by the diagram that I've depicted on the right-hand side, or in barrique, which is a more modern technique, which has been adopted, of course, from France, so smaller barrels. The larger barrels will have less flavor and aroma impact, whereas barriques, if they're certainly newer, will have more flavor and aroma impact on the final wine. Okay, so that's our aging length of Chianti Classico. Then we are going to talk about two specific Chianti Classicos of often higher quality. So next one up is here been highlighted or underlined, Chianti Classico Reserva. So that's Chianti Classico Reserva. So Chianti Classico Reserva has a more strict and stringent aging length. So here we are, minimum 24 months total aging. So this is double that of Chianti Classico. Minimum 3 months in bottle of the 24 months. So it must be partially some bottle and then oak. Can't all just be oak. And then once again, the same rules apply. It could be in botti or smaller barrels and a variety of types of barrels. So that's Chianti Classico Reserva. Then we have the top one, Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, which is one of the newer creations of Chianti, really to identify some of the single estate terroirs of very, very high quality. So this is Gran Selezione. Let's have a look what it means. So Chianti Classico Gran Selezione has to have a minimum of 30 months total aging, though there is no stipulation on if that's oak or barrel or both. It could be one or the other or both. It could be in botti, it could be in small barrels. There is a more propensity for smaller barriques with the Gran Seleziones, and it must come from a single estate, and often it comes from a single vineyard. So these are some of the, I mean, they've been around for years and years, but being called Gran Selezione is quite a new concept within in the Chianti zone. With Chianti Classico, the rules around what you can blend in are a little bit more strict. It's a minimum 80% Sangiovese with 20% other grape varieties being blended in, apart from, I believe, Gran Selezione, but you don't quote me on that. So that is your video for Chianti, looking at the main DOCGs and Sangiovese. I hope you found this useful. We haven't looked at a Google Earth video because that actually will be featured on part 2, along with a working written question, which will work through everything we've just gone through, but from an examiner's point of view, and I'll go through it with you. That is only available to members of my e-learning portal. That's Wine with Jimmy e-learning portal. So go up to the website to sign up to that, where you'll find a huge host of other videos. There's lots of content that I have filmed, which is exclusive only to that e-learning portal, plus all of the ones you find also on YouTube, plus all of those things like short written questions and the answers, multiple choice questions and the answers, things like flashcards as well. Lots of stuff to help you gain confidence to aim to that pass with distinction in the WSET Level 3 examination. As always, if you do have any comments, questions or concerns, please get in touch by either commenting on this video on YouTube, or get in touch via social media that you see at the bottom of each slide, or by the website Wine with Jimmy. Otherwise, I will see you soon. Please, if you are in London, come and see us for a class, a glass, or a bottle. It'll be great to see you. Take care of yourselves. I've been Jimmy Smith. Goodbye.